about what this vermouth is in your glass.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks so much, Shannon, and all the folks at Alley 26 for having me on. Vermouth is, at its core, is wine bittered with wormwood. Wormwood is a leafy herb. It's bitter, it's herbaceous, and the name became part of the marketing of this type of product because people wanted to have that herb for reasons that might be considered medicinal or whatnot. We're not really allowed to talk about that in this forum. But vermouth, the history of bittering wine with vermouth goes back at least to ancient Greece and likely much farther. The history of the business of vermouth goes back to the area around the Italian and French Alps in the late 1700s and the early 1800s. One of the core companies that is part of that initial history is Dolin from the city of Chambéry. Chambéry is where you get off the big train from Paris to go skiing. So right there in the middle of the Alps, beautiful little town. And in 1821, Dolin started making vermouth in Chambéry. The style that they made was a style that mimicked the delicate white wines of the region, light and floral and herbaceous. So in the dry vermouth that you have in front of you today, those are the characteristics that are going to come through. But at its core, and at the core of all vermouth, as we said at the beginning, is wine. Now that brings two considerations to the party. One, you get all this great texture from the wine and acid from the wine, and that's what adds a lot of beautiful breadth and depth to your cocktails, especially the first cocktail we're going to talk about tonight. Second is because it's wine, it's perishable. So the really important thing here is you buy a bottle of vermouth and you open a bottle of vermouth, you got to put it in the fridge and you got to use it within a few weeks. That's why the good folks at Alley 26 sell half bottles, because sometimes you're not going to go through it that quickly. But when you buy a really good vermouth, you will find that even if you use a lot of it in a cocktail, it's going to support the other ingredients in a drink, not overpower the other ingredients in the drink. For Dolin Dry in particular, if you're a fan of Julia Child, she used to drink martinis reversed, mostly vermouth and just a little bit of gin. And this very clean style of dry vermouth is perfect for that kind of drink. If you like nice soft herbed goat cheeses, I think you'll find that a glass of this would go quite well with those cheeses. But of course, its home here in America is in what was called the dry martini before people started using dry martini to refer to a vermouth, a martini with no vermouth. And what Dolin does is it adds texture to gins that want texture added to them. It adds structure to gins that want structure added to them. And it highlights everything you like about your favorite gin in a martini. That's about it for me. Shannon, thank you for having me. I'm going to stick around for a while and see these drinks.
Please do.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Jake. We like Dolin, and as he mentioned, we do sell half bottles of the dry and the rouge here at Mixers and Mercantile, our store that used to be our dining room. So hopefully everybody's got a chance to smell and taste this. And cast aside. What was that?
Sorry, very floral.
Very floral. Yes, definitely. Kind of its point, really. One of the main points of it, besides that bitter, which helps with digestion and stuff, the stuff we're not allowed to talk about that he said. The reason he said we're not allowed to talk about it is you can't make medicinal claims without, having your product tested like it was a medicine. And no one's going to do blind testing and FDA-approved testing to make sure that your bittered aperitivo actually is a digestif or an aperitivo. Okay, so let's look at that first cocktail. Should be pretty straightforward. This is going to be a stirred cocktail, so we're going to make sure we have our spoon handy. Now you can use fancy mixing glasses, or you can just go ahead and use an empty pint glass. This is actually what's called a mixing glass. It looks exactly like a pint glass because it is. The only difference is when you buy a mixing glass, the rim right here is tempered, which is important because often you'll shake drinks And if you do that repeatedly to a glass that's not tempered, it will crack and possibly injure you. So get a mixing glass or just use it to stir. Okay, so let me look at that recipe for you. So with all our recipes, often we're going to start near the bottom and work back up. In this case, we're going to start with that line. It's the fourth line that says 1 dash of fee. So this is our fee Aztec chocolate. All of the fee bitters are pretty straightforward as far as flavor profiles go. And the Aztec, as far as I can tell, means cinnamon. So there's some cinnamon in their chocolate bitters. So it says 1 dash. A dash is not a drop. It's like a hot sauce dash. So get it in there and get it out like that. Now, fee has a bigger aperture than like Angostura or Peychaud or pretty much any other bitter. So you're going to get a lot more, which is why this recipe calls for 1 dash. Okay? And then we're going to work up from there. Except for I'm going to skip. This is confusing. Sorry. I'm going to go right to the syrup. All of our syrups are made with real stuff. If you look at the back, the ingredients listed of this blood orange syrup, it says blood orange, sugar, water. So it's pretty straightforward. We use real things. Real things can fall out of suspension. So what we're going to do is turn that over or give it a quick shake. Before we go, 1/2 ounce of our blood orange syrup. I like to start when making cocktails with the sticky stuff. Any kind of sweet or syrupy thing, and then move on to stuff that can clean my jigger out so that I'm not wasting my syrup in the jigger and putting it in the glass. So 1/2 ounce of the dry vermouth. And then last, but certainly not least, we're going to put the mezcal in. So we're using Del Maguey's Vita. Del Maguey, I believe the fellow's name is Ron Cooper, and he decided America needed to know more about mezcal. So he released this whole line of single village mezcals, because mezcals, being a very artisanal thing, show a lot of terroir, which is a phrase you normally hear in wine, which is the things of a place. It's involves climate, soil, but it also involves the idea of historic technique. So you make something different in one place than you do in another, and that has an effect on the flavor as well. So we loved his mezcals behind the bars all over America, but they're really expensive, so it was hard to put them in cocktails. So then he came out with Vita, which is kind of a blend, which is a really good primer, a good first mezcal. And it shows you really not how delicious mezcal can be. And then maybe you can spend a little more, like, liking a bourbon on the lower end, on the mid end, and then saying, I like this, I'm going to invest in fancier bottles. So this is that, and it's a great one to mix with. So 1.5 ounces, 2 ounces. There's 1, and there's 2 ounces. Okay. Now, do we have cold glasses? If we do, now's the time to dump that other ice out and get some nice, fresh, cold ice cubes. You've been on these before. You know what I'm about to say. I know it seems like ice is always cold. If your ice is like wet, that means it's already melting. That's not what I mean by cold. So we're just going to stir the glass, stir the ice around. If you haven't done this before, it's really simple. First, you make sure your spoon is kind of twisted like this. That helps you do it. Stirring stirring ice, really the trick is to get the back of the spoon against the inside edge of the glass. Get in like that, and then you're just basically letting the spoon spin in your hand. You're not actually holding the spoon. You're just kind of trapping it. Yes. Okay, we're getting there. So just you can feel the outside of the glass if you want. And if you don't have straws to taste with, you can always cheat. Take a little bit, just pour it on your hand. You knew the measurements were right because we figured this out already. But you're really tasting for cold. So at this point, you can either hold the ice back with the edge of your spoon as you pour, or you can use one of your strainers. It's just as simple as that. Put that over here for now. And now the last couple of things. We're going to put a cherry in there. I'm using Luxardo brand cherries, but there's a lot of good cherries on the market. This is a maraschino cherry. Spelled the same as that other word, maraschino. It's not that. This is actually a Marasca cherry that has been pickled in its own juice. And it's delicious. As opposed to those bright red ones that we had as kids in our cocktails that are American cherries that are not Marasca cherries. They're not necessarily sour cherries. They're bleached and then colored, and then they float around in that kind of cesspool of corn syrup and preservatives. This is delicious. So we're going to put one of these in here. A little treat at the end. And then 2 dashes of Fee right on top. It's kind of sloppy, but it looks kind of cool. And I like just a hint of rusticity with Mezcal because we're kind of giving them on the eye what we're going to get them on the palate. And then a lime twist. And we can do this a couple of ways. We can either take a paring knife or a peeler, or for feeling froggy, and we have a channel knife. That's the easiest way to make a pretty one. But just in case, most folks on the call won't have a channel knife, so I'm gonna go back to just a peeler. And this is the important, no matter how you do it, no matter which of these implements you use, make sure you're aiming the fruit at the drink as you peel. Because as you're expressing the oils, you want them on top to really get that nose. So I'm gonna start it, and then I'm gonna, like that, and you can see the oils kind of right on top. And then I'm gonna take the skin part, not the white pithy part, the skin part, just gonna touch the edge of that glass. Not really rub it in, just touch it. And then between my fingers like this, I'm gonna squeeze. There you go. And then it just covers the top of that with oils. Sneak that in because it's pretty. And then I'm gonna smell it again. So limey. 70%-ish of what we think of as taste is really smell. So making your drink smell nice is important. Cheers.
Okay, you come in here and make the next drink.
Oh. We have an argument going on?
Go now. I thought him go. I wanted us to do it together.
Anybody have any questions? You can either type them into the chat or you can unmute yourself for a question. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about Mezcal. Mezcal is an agave spirit. You might know its more famous older or cousin, tequila. Now, tequila, also made from agave, is made from the Weber blue agave, one agave. It can only be made from the Weber blue agave. If you talk to the folks in tequila, they will tell you it's because it is the best. It tastes the best. It's the superior agave. It might just be coincidence that it's also the most efficient. Like it's got the highest amount of sugar, so you get the most alcohol per pound out of plant harvested. That has nothing to do with it. I'm sure it's just that it's the best. Whereas Mezcal, you can use a lot of different kinds of different agave, and you can end up getting a lot of different flavors in your Mezcal because of that. But one of the things Mezcal is known specifically for versus tequila is the smokiness. And the interesting thing about the smokiness is that much like a Pd Scotch, like we're going to talk about next month, the flavor comes in before distillation, where we've done the bourbon class before, and we know we make the spirit and then we put it in that charred oak barrel. So after distillation, bourbon is taking on all of this barrel flavor. Whereas in the peatiness in Scotch and the smokiness in Mezcal comes in before. For Mezcal, that comes in because, well, generally speaking, Mezcal is done on a smaller scale historically, and it was more of a country, kind of the moonshine of Mexico. Some delicious, delicious moonshine. But they didn't have big steam ovens like they did in tequila to make those tequilas. And when you cook in the steam oven, you're not really imparting a lot of flavor from the oven. When you cook over an open fire or in a pit or whatever, but you have to cook with wood, there's smoke, and that smoke gets into the agave. And then as long as you don't distill it too high, then you can retain that flavor. And that's kind of why mezcals, generally speaking, have that smoky flavor, and they're known for that smoky flavor. And historically, they're mostly Joven. They're mostly young spirits. Is Mezcal Pd like Isla Scotch was a question? No. If you mean, strictly speaking, do they smoke peat? Do they burn peat moss to get smoke? No. Is it smoky? Yes. So it's interesting because it's similar, because in peaty scotches, what they do is they basically take germinated barley malt, and then they start an oven, and they feed it with big logs of peat moss that have been decomposed, basically. And they put them in there, and it kind of acts like pine needles on a campfire, really smoky. Well, the smoke comes up, and then when the smoke comes back down again, it lands and covers the peat, and it permeates the barley with that smoke. And that's how you make peaty scotch. Whereas with mezcal, often they'll take the agave and they'll either build a big bonfire and surround the bonfire with the agave, or they'll start a fire in a stone-lined pit and get the fire going, get the coals going, and then usually put a wet blanket in, but then pile on agave and then pile the dirt on. So you're kind of making the earth an oven. But when you do that, you trap the smoke. But either way, you're trapping smoke in a source material before it's even, in either case, fermented. So they're similar in that way, but there is no peat used in the making of mezcal. I hope I answered your question.
Shannon, with the when they bake the mezcal, do they just use the piña, or do they also use the leaves?
Just the piña.
Thank you.
So the interesting thing about mezcal is the agaves can come in all kinds of different sizes, right? Tobla tends to be really small, and some of the other ones can be really, really huge. Weber Blue Agave, you can make mezcal out of Weber Blue Agave as well. The most common mezcal, I know making a big deal about how all of these different agaves can be used in mezcal, but somewhere north of 90% of the agave used to make mezcal is a varietal called Espadín. And Espadín is one of the two parent agaves of Weber Blue. So they're very similar in that regard. Okay. If we have no more questions on this, we can ask them whenever you'd like, but I'm gonna move on to the next cocktail. People tend to get thirsty in these. Okay, so the next one's gonna be pretty simple. If you were able to do that last one, this one's gonna be so simple. We're gonna do, this one's gonna be basically almost like, it's just a Mezcal Ginger, basically, or a ginger margarita, or you'll notice that this like tripod kind of cocktail happens over and over and over and over. And we're going to keep this really, really simple. It's 3/4 of an ounce of the ginger syrup, 3/4 of an ounce of fresh squeezed lime juice, and a 1.5 ounces of mezcal. We're going to use the mezcal we did earlier with the jalapeno. First things first, if you've got some fresh squeezed lime juice, good on you. If you don't have it ready yet, like I don't, just going to have to get to work. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and take that lime that I already used as garnish and cut that and squeeze it. Now, if you go to your grocery store aisle, in the produce aisle, they sell those little lime-shaped green plastic bottles with real lime. I discovered something really interesting. On the same aisle, you can just get real limes. So just do that. I beg of you. Okay, just squeeze and, well, I have a less generous lime here. Or I can just cheat. Ah, there we go. Okay. I'm going to take a fine mesh strainer now. If you have one, great. If you don't, you'll be fine. Just going to go ahead and measure out my 3/4 of an ounce. Oh, that was a stingy lime. Usually a lime will give you about 1 ounce, if not more, especially one of these big old limes. I got literally 3/4 of an ounce out of that one. So it will vary. It's 3/4 of an ounce of lime juice. Ginger. So this is our ginger syrup. Same as the other one. Really simple ingredients. The number one ingredient is ginger. So go ahead and tip it over a few times or give it a shake. And then 3/4 of an ounce of ginger syrup. Okay. Last but certainly not least, we have the mezcal that we measured earlier with the jalapenos in it. If we want this spicy, you can pour this whole glass into that whole glass and you have all your ingredients. If you want to back off a little, you're like, okay, I think I've gotten enough. And you probably might have. You could take that fine mesh strainer we just used and just strain out the jalapeno, which I'm going to do. I'm going to reserve these jalapenos, however. You stay right there. I think I'm done with my cut board for now. Okay, so now we have all of the ingredients in this glass. Oh yeah, that's gonna be great. We're gonna get our glass, nice cold glass. We're gonna get our fresh ice. 5, 6 cubes, depending on how big your cubes are. We do like large format cubes because the little ones tend to melt too fast. We're gonna give this a good solid shake. Just like that. Use that fine mesh strainer again. I like to use the fine mesh strainer anytime I'm pouring a drink like this, because when you shake, you're diluting the drink with the ice. You're not just chilling it down. And right now, I think it's diluted to the right amount. If I didn't use the fine mesh strainer, all of this ice would still be in there. And by the time I got to the bottom of the drink, you know. So now I have reserved, if you will, my jalapeno, and I'm gonna just float a couple right on top there. The first sip is with the eyes. Cheers. Has everybody been able to make that one? Any questions? See how that is.
I'm glad we soaked the jalapenos in the mezcal beforehand because it does impart a really nice, mouthfeel and flavor. Yeah.
Doesn't it? And it doesn't take very long. So when you're infusing a spirit with something, as a general rule, it's time and temperature. It's just like you're cooking, right? So time, meaning we didn't put it in very long, and temperature. By temperature, I actually mean proof. So if this was like 190, we could put it in for just a minute or two and we'd got the same thing. If this was wine, we might leave it in overnight. So it's time and temperature. And when you're trying to infuse something, if you like this technique, feel free to use it. If something is wet or fresh, it takes very little. Like this jalapeno is a fresh jalapeno, it takes very little. If something is harder, like cinnamon, or or spices that are whole spice, you can usually leave them in overnight or more, and you'll continue to get benefit from it. Whereas the fresher stuff is better quicker, because if you leave it in too long, it starts to take on funky or unpleasant flavors.
And when do you muddle something versus when do you just drop it in like this one? I mean, with mint leaves and fruits, you tend to muddle them.
Yes. Well, here's the thing. You could. I've done this with, like, if I use cilantro in tequila, I'll often infuse cilantro into tequila. And I'll do it just like this, not even as long, right? There is a benefit to having the whole produce in there, both on the flavor, but also aesthetically. It looks great. And if you don't want that aesthetic for some reason, then there's another way to get that flavor in there, which is the way I'm showing you. I like this way for pepper, only because, peppers have seeds and other kinds of stuff, which can radically alter the flavor from one sip to the next. And for the purposes of something like this, I want a more consistent flavor. I've had somebody make a cocktail for me one time. They shall remain unnamed. It was an egg white cocktail, and they had pickled jalapeno, and they threw it on top of the drink. And the vinegar was like ridiculously spicy. So I'm at this fancy restaurant. I'm about to sit down for an expensive meal. And the first sip of anything I put in my mouth has me like sweating and in pain. And this is the important part, unable to taste anything. So you have to be careful about when you introduce spice, and like the people you're serving it to. I enjoy spice, but not everybody does.
Thank you.
Of course. We had a question. They've been tasting some salinity. Is that from the mezcal? Yes, mostly. You're definitely going to get that from the herbaceousness of mezcal. And depending on where the agave came from, you're going to get that kind of thing. But not to sell short the idea that fresh jalapeno also has some salinity to it, and like ginger and salt can kind of play similarly. But most of what you're getting is mezcal. Maybe just another sip to make sure. Oh yeah. Does everybody like that one? Okay, that one was well received.
Mm.
Outstanding. Cheers to you, Chuck.
Because the jalapeno is not overwhelming. It's just a nice note.
I'm glad you like it. Yeah, I like to use spice. Like I said, some people love really spicy things, and you can always adjust to them. But as a general rule, if I'm making a cocktail for a larger group or food for a larger group, I like to use spice as a flavor, not a dare. You know, I like to like, oh, there's that thing. I can taste that. Not like, oh, I think I'm man enough to handle this. Maybe just one more.
Hey, can I ask you a question?
Please do.
Okay, this is an overview type question. The type of mezcal, various kinds, Joven. What does that mean, and how do you pronounce it?
Oh, Joven.
Joven. And what does it mean?
It means young. So Joven means young. If you go to Spain and you want a fresh kind of country wine, you'll drink Joven. That is the category. If you are in mezcal, Joven basically means unaged, like unbarrel aged. Whereas in tequila, there's Blanco, sorry, wrong language, Reposado, Añejo. In mezcal, they have those similar things, but Joven, meaning young, is historically the important style. Because it's not that you can't barrel age a mezcal or have a sin fumo or like without smoke mezcal, that can't be nice. But historically, mezcals are made and served to the population, like right in your town. And most of the folks that are making them are showing up with like gas cans full of mezcal. They don't have the money for fancy, expensive barrels to like not sell you what they made. Mezcaleros, generally speaking, are not necessary. There's a lot of money going there now, but historically there has not been. So it's really about the terroir. The flavor profile is really about the hand of the maker. It's, okay, where was it made? Who made it? What agave did they use? And they all have different ideas of like how hot it should be. They all have different ideas, and they've literally different ideas of the best way to extract the fruit, the best way. There's somebody here at the door, just so you know. Sorry, I got a door here. They all have different ways of each step in the process, like how to harvest the fruit, how to get the sugar from the fruit, meaning like crushing it or rolling it or all kinds of different ways. What wood to cook the mezcal in if you're cooking it in wood. And then once you get past the fermentation, how hot to distill it to. And I believe what was that?
I did a mezcal tasting in Oaxaca one time. It was lovely.
Okay.
So the question was, and I'm not going to remember the details, there was this one category, so they had all these categories on them, and I didn't understand like most of it. But there was something about leather bag. So is that the fermentation, and do some people do like leather or something like that? I know
there's a lot of different ways to do it. And so let me see, what other mezcals do I have handy? Okay, so if you go to Oaxaca, which you've been, you might remember that if you go to one of those mezcalerias, the like bars, but they're kind of just like a library where you go in and it's all mezcal everywhere. The labels won't look this fancy like a label that we're used to seeing. It'll be a piece of paper with like vital statistics, right? How, like, who made it, what agave was used, when it was harvested, the proof, just like very specific technical information. And a lot of times you'll see what vessels were used. So some of them still are using like ceramic or wooden stills, like really old technology. And it affects the flavor of the final product, which is why a lot of wine lovers are now getting into mezcal. There's a really individual kind of hand of the maker expression. Now, leather, I don't know. They could do things in leather, but I've not heard specifically about that. I've certainly used ceramic and wood and stone and steel. This is elote. This is a different mezcal. from Mezcal Vago. These guys make a lot of good stuff. And they modeled their label more like the information you would see on like domestic mezcals in country. And it's just, it'll say like which agave was used, what village it was made in, the grind. So this is, they ground this one with stone because different mezcaleras actually grind it in different ways. So you end up with a different kind of pulp to start with. Type of still, this one's a copper still. Distillation date, this happens to be September 17. There's the batch size, like how much was made. This class, it says distilled with corn. So this one's called elote. So this isn't a regular one. This particular agave was made in a kind of fancier subgenre of mezcals, usually referred to as pechugas, which just means chicken. But this is elote, meaning cooked corn. Why they call them that is because they suspend, historically, like raw chicken or something over the tank, and while it's fermenting, it would basically eat the thing and absorb the flavor. Or sometimes they'll put it in on the first pass of distillation because mezcal is usually distilled twice because that's the law. Anyway, so this one, you can taste the same from this particular distillery, Mezcaleria. You can taste the same Mezcalero's regular agave, regular espadín, which is the agave he used, mezcal, or you can taste his elote. And I've had a chance to have them side by side, and you can really taste the corn in it. Although it wasn't, they didn't distill corn. They just kind of incorporated the smell and flavor of it, which is really interesting. So sorry, I didn't answer your question. I have no idea about leather.
That's okay.
No, that was great. Thank you.
That's great.
Any other questions before we move to cocktail tres? I'll take that as a no. Okay, last but not least, we're moving on to our most adventurous cocktail. I'm going to walk through this one nice and slowly. This is going to be an egg white cocktail. So we're going to start moving from the Fee Brothers up. The Fee Brothers 1- line up. But first, take a minute, enjoy your drinks. I'm going to go wash my stuff. Come back, wash your stuff. We'll be ready for the third drink. I could have sworn there was more in that. Pass me a towel. Okay. gussied up the joint. Okay. Last but certainly not least, round 3. So if you're following along with your scorecard at home, this is the Earth and Sky. And it looks like there's a lot of stuff in there, because there's a lot of stuff in there. But if you really think about it, there's 1 shot, 1.5 ounces. We're going to refer to that as a shot of mezcal. There's 1/2 ounce of Dolin dry, 1/2 ounce of lemon juice, and 1/4 ounce of both syrups. So if you put those together, there's 1/2 ounce of syrup. So it's a shot and half. Couldn't be simpler. Do you believe me yet? Okay. Oh, sorry. So first, we're going to do, as I promised, the bitters. 1 dash. There it is. And then orange. Of course, we tip it or shake it, or in my case, both. Ginger. Quarter and quarter. Then 1/2 ounce of Dolin. Then 1/2 ounce of lemon. There we go. Okay. Last but certainly not least, how are we doing? Is everybody following along? Yep, I got thumbs up there. Cool, cool, excellent. Got some old hands here. This is good. We got pros. I get nervous usually when I don't get a lot of questions, but this is you guys are doing it. You guys are doing well. So, 1.5 ounces. Big side of my jigger is 1.5 ounces, but I like to clean out the jigger, so I'm going to use the small side for 1 ounce, and then go back again for 1/2. Okay. So here's the fun part, the egg white part. The egg white is there for texture and mouthfeel. It's not really there for flavor. So we're going to do 2 things to make sure that it's not really there for flavor. The first thing we're going to do is use a fresh egg. Seriously, use a fresh egg. And then the second thing we're going to do is we're going to do 2 dashes of the Aztec bitters right on top. And then we're going to ghost a lemon swath. And I'll show you what I mean by that when we get there. So what I'm about to do, and I'm going to lead in by telling you I'm about to do it, is we're going to shake what we have in the glass right now, which is everything but the egg white. Then we're going to strain the ice off. And then we're going to add the egg white. Okay? We good? Cool. Nice, good, fresh ice cubes. There we go. Now, we're going to quickly strain the ice off because we've shaken it. It's cold. You can't let it sit around on that ice because the ice is diluting the drink and melting, and it's going to continue to do that. So we shake it as long as we want it shaken. We dilute it as much as we want it diluted, and then we strain the ice off so that it doesn't keep cooking. Okay, now we're gonna add that egg. So I took my tin and I dumped the ice. I'm gonna take an egg, voila. I have another one just in case I mess this up. You should too. The good thing about these tins is that the lip is really thin. So it makes it very easy to crack an egg. And then take the white out. So I got the white of my tin, throwing my yolk away. Now I can put this in here and start shaking, but I'm gonna, if you haven't tuned in for one of these yet, I'll show you the old trick. This is a Hawthorne Strainer. It got its name because a guy named Hawthorne spelled his name in the holes at one point. He didn't invent anything, but he branded better than anybody else. But we're gonna take this and just peel the coil off. Put the coil right in here. This is gonna act as our whisk. You don't need it. It makes life easier. Now, we've got egg white in here. If you feel unsure about the seal of your Boston shaker set here, take a dish towel, wrap it around. Okay, so now we're shaking. Unlike the ice where we shook it like nice and hard, quick, you don't get any points for speed. You don't really get any points for ferocity here. In fact, nice long kind of throws are good. You're feeling like it's already cold, right? So you're not feeling for temperature. What you're feeling for is kind of consistency. When it starts to get cloudy or fluffy, that's kind of it. So let's go get our glass. We use this nice big glass. If you got yours chilling with ice, throw the ice away. Give it a good show. I love the shakes. This is great. Okay, that'll do. I'm gonna take my coil out, put all that to the side. I'm gonna take my fine mesh strainer again for a couple of reasons. A, just in case I got a shell in, I'm gonna get the shell here rather than in my drink. And also, I like the way it makes the bubbles nice and small. And I just tap the side of my strainer with the tin. Get all the good stuff out. There you go. Last but not least, oh, left this right here. A couple of dashes, or a couple of drops, not dashes. A couple of drops. We're just gonna tilt this over. Now that's good. These are some heavy bitters, so they kind of fell almost right through. You take a spoon, or you can take the back of your bar spoon, or you can take a straw, however you want to do this, and you could just draw a line there. And then we're going to say, it says ghost a lemon. This is what I mean by that. I'm going to do what I did earlier with the lime. I'm going to peel right over the top of here. Then I'm going to do what I'm not going to touch the, well, yeah, you can. Just maybe right around the outside. Be very careful not to get in the foam. Just on the outside, just a really gentle touch. And then between your fingers, you can see the bubbles react. It's really nice. Okay, and then throw it away. Now smell. You got lemon, you got chocolate. Who doesn't love lemon and chocolate? Come on. Cheers. Yeah. Approachable. Tasty.
Boy, that egg sure smooths things out.
Doesn't it? I like to refer to egg white as the kind of lighting for a Tennessee Williams play. You know, everything's shot in soft gauze. Maybe just, Yeah, one more. Yeah, a good thing to use egg white for is when you have flavors that like each other, but they might have a little kind of edginess to them. We have a drink we do here called a jibe ho, which has lime and scotch in it. Maybe we'll do that one next month. And the drink is pretty good. And then we put a little egg white in there and it's really good. So sometimes just to get everybody, make everybody get along, a little egg white is a nice way to do that.
So it smooths the edges of all of these different drinks.
Exactly.
Can I ask a question
what she said?
Can I ask a question about vermouth?
Please.
So it's actually news to me that you have to refrigerate vermouth.
So
I'm curious about, how do you know when vermouth is has gone off or it's not good?
Okay. Jake, would you like to, I see that you're still here. Would you like to take this one?
Sure. So the general rule of thumb is for vermouth and other aromatized wines, things like vermouth or things that might be bitter with other things, or really any fortified wine, is the sweeter it is, the longer it'll last in your fridge. So something like a dry vermouth, I generally find is best within about 2 or 3 weeks. Whereas something that's more along the lines of a sweet vermouth, like Dolin Blanc or Dolin Rouge, can last a little bit longer, maybe about 4 weeks. And then there's a few products that are very, very, very sweet and maybe have a lot of caramel in them that might last a little bit longer because they don't have as much of the flavor of the wine in them. Really what's happening is the same thing that happens when you open a normal bottle of wine. It just takes longer because the liquid is thicker with the sugar in it. It's you could say it's oxidizing, or you could just say that all the things that make it wine-like are sort of frittering away and evaporating in the headspace of the above the liquid in the bottle. But yeah, keep your vermouth in the fridge and use it fresh. And that's the fun thing about finding drinks that use a lot of vermouth, or just drinking it on the rocks, maybe with a lemon peel or maybe with a splash of tonic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of an unknown for me as well. A couple of classes ago, Shannon, when you told us about vermouth, I was shocked.
Well, Jake and I were speaking before this, and you remember from the class, which vermouth was the first one that you were in for?
I think the rum class where you used kind of a sweet vermouth, I think.
Was it a red or a white vermouth?
I don't remember.
Okay. Well, Jake and I were talking about Blanc vermouth, which we used in an earlier class, and it really goes well with mezcal. We were going to use syrups in these cocktails, so we opted for the dry. But Jake, would you be willing to chat a little bit about mezcal and Blanc vermouth?
Yeah. So the idea of pale sweet vermouth originated in Chambéry, and what are called Blanc vermouths there aren't that sweet. They aren't as sweet as Italian vermouths. And that's just a characteristic of the local taste in the French market has always been a little bit drier than the taste in the Italian market. But Blanc vermouths, with their delicacy and with just that little bit of extra texture, and sometimes like Dolin Blanc has a little hint of vanilla to it, allow highly aromatic, clear spirits that have a ton of nose and aroma, but don't have any oak, to really shine when they're mixed together. And they provide kind of the backbeat and the texture. And I think the single best example of that is taking a good mezcal and mixing it with Dolin Blanc or Camoes Blanc. You can do, I always say try everything first 50-50. But I often find that you don't need as much of the mezcal because it's so much of the aroma of the mixture that you just need a little bit. So it's a great way to do kind of just like a quick low alcohol happy hour drink where you're really just using the mezcal to season it. But when I teach bartenders about mixing with Blanc vermouth, what I'll often do is have them start by taking a good Blanco tequila or a good mezcal and mixing it half and half with a Blanc vermouth and just tasting it, because I did that when I first learned about Blanc Vermouth, and it's still probably the most inspiring tasting thing I've ever done in the cocktail world.
Nice. Really nice. It's also an interesting thing that you can do with Mezcal, or you can do with Isla Scotch. Again, when Jake was speaking about doing a low alcohol, like a low ABV, a cocktail, vermouths are really helpful in that way. But another player in that are these like big aromatic spirits, like an Isla Scotch or a Mezcal. Because if you put just a little in there, you get the flavor, you get the nose. It's satisfyingly spirituous for cocktail lovers, and there's a depth of flavor because the vermouth has lots going on, but still, you can have more than one.
And it gets you in the mood to drink wine with dinner too. You know, a drink that's just got a little bit of spirit to just give you that sensation of the spirit, but at its core has a base of wine, gets you ready for dinner much more than a bunch of ounces of cold booze.
True.
Shannon, am I breaking the rules if I ask a non-Mezcal question?
Please, no.
Okay. So I am a whiskey fan.
Okay.
And
me too.
My grandmother is from Ireland.
Okay.
And I got a hold of this today, Tipperary.
Okay, Tipperary.
I've never had it. What's your impressions?
Hold on one second. Hey, Garrick, have you had Tipperary? No? Irish whiskey. Tipperary? Mm-hmm. I haven't had that. I have read about it. So my response would be really informed. Can you show me that bottle one more time? Oh, we're looking for him. Hold on, we're almost there. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Sorry, it's reversed, right?
No, you're good. I'm not getting it yet. Okay. You can put it down. I don't know about that specific Irish whiskey. Irish whiskey is having its moment. For a while, the only thing we got, I'll back up one more quick thing before I get there. I like to say that if you don't like something, it's probably because you haven't had the good stuff yet. And for a long time, people thought they knew what Irish whiskey was when they tried Jameson. And that may not be the whole story. Let's just put it that way. There are better and better Irish whiskeys on the market now. I have not had Tipperary. I'm willing to share some of yours. But the green spot and the yellow spot, and we have, hold on one second. Where's my Irish? There he is. The Redbreast and this 15-year expression of Redbreast. They're all real nice. Middletons.
I love Redbreast. Absolutely. The reason that I got it was because it was the county that, the reason I got it is because it was the county where my grandmother was born and my grandmother raised me. And every county is known, they all have whiskeys named after them, apparently. Aha. So this is more of a keepsake. My expectations aren't too high, but I was just wondering if you knew anything about it.
I don't know about that. Is that so? That's not available here.
No, I had to go through other means to get it.
Ah, okay. I don't feel as bad now for not being as acquainted with it. I think if you really want to think about your grandmother, you should go ahead and drink it. Don't let it go bad.
Hey, Sean. Yeah.
What was that?
Sorry, when you get done, I have a question.
Okay, I mean, that's really all I had to say. Although, if you don't want to break into the Tipperary yet, and you want to try some of this 15-year Redbreast, we have it for our Whiskey Wednesday, which is a zero profit bottle. On Wednesdays, we do basically a cost shot. So this 15-year Redbreast will be $7.50 for 1.5 ounces. So basically, we are literally passing it through it at no markup. Every Wednesday we do a different bottle for St. Patty's. Please join us if you can.
I'll be there.
Shannon, I could not find the Del Maguey Mezcal, so I ended up Crema de Mezcal from Del Maguey.
Oh, okay.
Can I mean, that's what I substituted today with.
I'm sure it was delicious. Can I see which one you got?
It's the same one.
Let me see. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's not your fault. I'm having some issues with my columns and stuff. Yeah, I love. So here's the thing about Del Maguey. That's how he's introduced interesting mezcal to America. Those single village expressions like the one you have. They're delicious. They're really, really interesting. And if you try all of them next to each other, they're clearly individual. They're different from each other in really satisfying ways as far as like enjoying the tasting experience. And the only reason I said use the Vita is because you're about to make cocktails. And as we talked about in a class that you were in before, the difference between a quality product and then like really higher levels of that product is subtlety. It's nuance. And sometimes you lose nuance when you blend a lot of things together. And along with that nuance is usually a price tag. So I'm not saying your drinks weren't enviable. There was no problem with using that mezcal. It was just reward, for price paid.
Yep, got it.
Quick question for you too.
Please.
So you did the dry shake after the ice shake with the egg. And
yes.
I've always been told by cocktail, whatever, but it was way better. Like, why do they recommend?
Because we always did it that way before. And then some people started doing it this way. And one of my bartenders sent me an article on it. And he's like, I think we should consider this. And I will change anything if you can tell me it's better and why is it better. So I tried doing it this other way that I've just done tonight a couple of years ago. And it was a real pain in the ass because muscle memory's a thing. When you're busting out lots of stuff, you're like, oh, wait a minute, I'm doing this wrong. But here's the thing. I said it's for texture, not flavor, right? And I always tell people that are nervous about it that it's kind of like meringue. I'm just getting it whipped. But every time I've ever made meringue or whipped egg white, I've always done it in a metal bowl over ice. So I've never done it warm. So why would I make this drink warm with egg white and then add the ice? The real reason to do it either way is it takes longer for the foam in the egg white than it does for the cold in the ice, right? And you don't want the ice in there as long as it takes to get fluffy because the drink will be over shaken. It'll be over diluted. I think they just did it one way, and then we figured out it was not me, I stole this idea, that it's better this other way, and it's faster, and I just get better results. And I just kind of went with, I got better results. I'm doing it this way.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Shannon.
Yeah.
So I've got the chocolate bitters here, right?
Okay, yeah.
Seems very unique as far as bitters are concerned. What else would you use this chocolate bitters in?
Well, you can use them in food. They go good on a lot of stuff. You can use them in, there's a number of modern classics that use either mole bitters or these chocolate bitters. These chocolate bitters are interesting because they're fee and they're a little more one note than a lot of other bitters. So that chocolate is really out up front. There's a couple of other folks that make mole bitters or other stuff that has more going on. And I'll reach for them when I want it to be less obviously chocolate. But basically, if you're making, hold on, let's stop for a second. Tell me what your favorite drink is normally.
Favorite drink would be an old fashioned.
Outstanding. So if I was going to make an old fashioned, you might want to try substituting these for Angostura. Don't put the cherry in, and use. You muddle yours, or is it old school old fashioned?
Old school.
Okay, so really dry old fashioned.
Yeah.
Okay. Granulated or simple?
Simple.
Ah, okay, great. Like literally, a little simple. 3 dashes of this. Try something new, and maybe instead of use lemon.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Switch to an orange peel.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
I think this, with the whiskey you're using, chocolate and orange, it's going to work out. It's going to be delicious and just different enough to make you feel like you're being adventurous, but you still get to drink an old fashioned.
Okay, so my second question is.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Manhattans, Negronis. It's good in a lot of things. Anything with sweet red Italian vermouth, it's going to work well with as well.
Okay. Okay. So second question is favorite Valentine's Day cocktail.
Well, anything my wife likes.
Yes.
So here's the thing. I make cocktails for a living. I might have mentioned this. My wife will never once ask me for a spirit forward cocktail. My wife is never going to say, I'll have an old fashioned, unless she says she pre-qualifies with rum. So she wants something softer, something sweeter. Like this is her thing. So my perfect Valentine's Day cocktail would be something that I know my wife will like. And so that's going to be something not sweet, like she's not cloying, but she doesn't want the spirit to be the star player, right? So who are you making this cocktail for?
My wife as well, who also likes old fashions.
Well, this will be so much easier. You can make something you love and tell her you made it for her. So she's right there, isn't she? Okay, so literally, if she likes old fashions, bourbon or rye?
Bourbon.
Outstanding. This is getting better. Literally, just tweak your old fashioned.
Yeah.
Like just tweak it with some Valentine's Day spin. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like, you know what she likes. Instead of trying to like wow her with something she's never had, give her a spin on something you know she's going to like.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know flavors she likes, raspberry is delicious. If you know that there's some flavor note, whatever her favorite fruit is. What is her favorite fruit? Berry.
Mangoes.
Oh, outstanding. That's not going to be an old fashioned, although it could be.
No.
Do you have cachaça?
No.
What?
No.
That's a no. Okay. So maybe a funky white rum, like a rum agricole, or like anything like that.
Yep.
Then you can follow the same approach that you would to use making an old fashioned, right? Cut some of the mango up, muddle it in simple, a couple of dashes of chocolate bitters. They're going to go great with mango, and 2 ounces of rum.
Yep.
But I would choose a white rum.
Okay.
Like,
thank you.
Then you're like, she likes that kind of construct.
Yep.
Flavor she likes, offer her.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, if there are no other questions, I want to thank you all for joining us and encourage everyone, of course, to come on for the next one. We have it next month, same bat time, same bat station, second Thursday. And we're doing Scotch. I really want to thank our special guest, Jake Parrott of Household Pens, thank you, Jake, if you're still on the line. Oh, excellent. And Jake, did you have anything to end with? Nothing like putting the guy on the spot.
No, just don't be afraid of vermouth. Don't be afraid of other aromatized wines. Celebrate them, drink them simply, and have fun with them. And see our website for many more ideas. I put it in the chat.
Thank you. And thank you again for joining us. Really appreciated that. Or still appreciate it. And thank you all for joining us as well. I love doing these. I can't wait to see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was awesome.
We'll see you for Scotch.
Thank you. Decided on your Scotch.
Why we need Scotch cocktails, like when we just drink the Scotch. But anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, both of those are good ideas.
These are good.
I didn't say you should stop just drinking Scotch. I've never said that.
Thank you, Shannon.
Oh, there's one more question.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Dan.
We're going to our refrigerator and clearing out the 2004 and 2006 white vermouth.
Yes, you should do that, or cook with it.
But
vermouth is the original Beurre Blanc.
But I had heard 2004 was a good year.
It's a great year. It's a great year to cook with.
Okay, thanks again.
Thank you, Dan.
Have you decided on your Scotch for the next class?
We haven't. I will send out a list. Here's the thing with Scotch, as I'm sure you understand. We're going to send out a few with, if you like this kind of expression, then try this. If you like this kind of expression, then try this. You know, we'll send ones that will work with all of them, but depending on what kind of, you know, how smoky you want it, how robust you want it. The fun thing about Scotch whiskey is that there's literally something for everyone. If you want to get Dolin, it's just honey and orange peel, like honeycomb. It's just delicious, but really soft and simple. Or there's Lafroig or Ardbeg in the Isla side, which is
peaty,
very aggressive. So we can make cocktails to the palate of who wants to drink them, but we'll probably suggest something a little more middle of the road and something blended. Just like I suggested the Vita for A, it's delicious, but B, it's a little more, you know, cost sensitive than those finer, fancier single village mezcals, which are delicious. We'll probably suggest a blended Scotch, a few blended Scotches, either Johnny Red or maybe a vatted Scotch like Monkey Shoulder.
Okay. Have you archived your previous classes, and is there a way to access them?
We have not yet. We have not. We have archived how many videos now? Like 100, like 3 to 5 to 10 minute videos on our YouTube page, which is just youtube.com/e thing, Alley26, all spelled out in letters. And we did record this one. So you, sir, are saved for posterity. Oh, that's Uncle Danny. Outstanding.
You got it. You got it.
Oh, hey, yeah. She's hidden behind the column.
Aha.
There you are. Hey. Hey. Oh, I feel like she couldn't see me until I could see her. This is like I feel like a kid nodding like on the phone. Hey, Aunt. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Well, then thank you one and all. Appreciate you. Cheers. Till next month.
Thanks. Cheers.
We're going to leave the class open for a little bit. I'll drop off, but I know there's family and friends that are on this. If you guys want to chit chat for a second, Claire's going to leave this up. Thanks.
Thanks all.
YouTube page.
Hey, Chuck.
Hi, family and friends. We have been juggling the new dog. If you
I know. I saw you playing with him during the class.
Yeah, she's like, hey, wait, you're ignoring me.
She's usually asleep this time of night, but
yeah,
apparently the prospect of cocktails was.
Plus, it's rained all day, so she has not gotten as much walking as she normally has. Who's that behind you, Claire? I can't tell with the mask.
Oh, that's Garrig.
Oh, hey, Garrig.
Hey, Garrig.
Hey, Claire.
So,
Hi.
Sign us up for next month.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll post the tickets tomorrow. We're going to announce Scotch. You guys heard it here first.
Scotch I'll definitely sign up for, so.
Absolutely.
I told Danny, I said, I'll come with you, but I may not drink much. Definitely not as much as I did tonight.
Yeah, we made doubles of everything. So next month it might be singles. We'll see.
Well, because the first drink, we split it. We made one and split it.
Yeah.
It was fine, but on the third drink, somehow we screwed up and we ended up making 4.
Oh!
Yeah, like that one best.
That's called higher math. Yeah, no, it's good. You know, funny story, and some of these other people who are still on may not care, but when we met Don and Rob out at the Grand Canyon 2 years ago,
that's how we got on Mezcal.
Some random couple that showed up in this remote spot where we were had some really nice mezcal, and we'd not really been drinking mezcal, and they came over to our campsite and shared mezcal with us one night, and it was like,
and you could drink it straight, and I'm like, oh, a new camping drink.
Yeah, so Diane was like, I like this stuff. So
I think we got into it when we went to Mexico.
Ah, really? Okay.
Did Godbirds give you mezcal?
Yeah.
My dear.
What was that?
Yeah, I stole Shannon's second one.
Yeah, we were.
You might have. Yeah, you might have seen my hand like mid class, like come forward and steal half of the drink.
Sorry, Danny, I might have interrupted there. I apologize.
The drinks were really, really good.
They were. I actually really liked that first one.
I did. The first two were probably my favorite because I'm not sure I got everything right on the last one.
I think you